Good morning, Eve.
Good morning, Chris. What's up?
I want to talk about Genesis, basically chapters 5 through 9, going over Noah today.
Sure thing. Let's start with Genesis chapter 5. It's a genealogy from Adam to Noah, listing the descendants and their ages. Is there a specific part of chapter 5 you'd like to focus on first?
So, our last conversation, we basically left off with Cain and Abel. Do we know from that situation to Noah how long that was?
Yes. The genealogy in Genesis 5 gives a timeline from Adam to Noah. It lists the age at which each patriarch had his son and how long he lived. From Adam to Noah is about 1,056 years. Noah is the 10th generation from Adam.
So, Noah's a direct descendant of Adam and Eve, correct?
Exactly. Noah is a direct descendant of Adam and Eve through their son Seth. The genealogy in chapter 5 traces the line from Adam to Noah, listing each generation and how long they lived.
And does it talk any about Noah's early life?
Genesis 5 ends by mentioning Noah's birth and his 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. It doesn't go into detail about Noah's early life. The narrative picks up more about Noah's life and character in chapter 6, where it's noted that he found favor with God because he was righteous and blameless among the people of his time.
Okay, so basically God created the heavens and the earth. Adam and Eve came, they were tempted, kicked out of the Garden of Eden, and then they, had many kids. And then basically people just started living throughout the earth up until the time of Noah at this point, correct?
Yes, that's right. After Adam and Eve left the Garden of Eden, humanity multiplied. The generations from Adam to Noah are listed in chapter 5, and by Noah's time, the earth had become corrupt and filled with violence. That's when God decided to bring the flood and start anew with Noah and his family.
Okay, so speaking on the flood, let's talk about the ark. How big was it?
The ark was described as 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high. A cubit is generally considered to be about 18 inches, so that would make the ark approximately 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 45 feet high.
So is that like 4.5 football fields long?
Not quite. A football field is about 300 feet long, including the end zones. So at 450 feet, the ark would be about 1.5 football fields long.
And how high did you say it was?
It was about 45 feet high. That's roughly the height of a 4-story building.
And how wide was it?
It was about 75 feet wide, which is roughly the width of a 7-lane road.
And how long did it take Noah to build?
According to the Bible, it doesn't give an exact number of years for the construction. However, it's commonly estimated to have taken several decades, possibly around 50 to 75 years, based on the timeline of events and Noah's age.
And Noah did this by himself, the building of the ark?
The text doesn't specify exactly who helped Noah build the ark, but it's generally understood that he had assistance from his sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and possibly others. But the Bible mainly emphasizes Noah's obedience and leadership in the construction.
Okay, and do we know what it was constructed out of? Like, what materials did he use?
Yes, the ark was constructed out of gopher wood, which is a type of wood mentioned in the Bible. The exact species isn't known today, but it was likely a durable, resinous wood. Noah was also instructed to coat it with pitch inside and out to make it waterproof.
And what is pitch?
Pitch is a tar-like substance, usually derived from tree resin or other natural sources. It was used in ancient times as a waterproof sealant to protect wooden structures and vessels from water. In the case of the ark, it ensured that the vessel was watertight and could float safely.
And I mean, he had to have some type of diagram, or like, how did he even know how to build this?
The Bible says that God gave Noah specific instructions on the dimensions and construction details of the ark. While it doesn't mention a physical diagram, It implies that Noah received detailed guidance from God on how to build it. This would have included the materials, dimensions, and layout needed to construct such a large vessel.
And I mean, wouldn't he have had to have like nails or something like that?
He likely used wooden pegs, dowels, or other types of joinery to hold the structure together. In ancient times, large wooden structures were often built using wooden pegs or mortise and tenon joints. They might have also used some form of metal fasteners if they were available, but the primary method would have been wooden construction techniques that were common at the time.
And inside of the ark, does it tell? I mean, I know I've seen it like in movies on what people think it was like, but was it like cages or do you know?
The Bible doesn't provide detailed descriptions of the interior layout. It mentions that the ark had 3 decks and rooms, and that Noah was to store food and provisions for his family and the animals. While movies and interpretations often depict cages or stalls for the animals, the text itself doesn't specify the exact arrangement. It simply states that the ark was built to house and preserve all the living creatures and supplies.
Okay, and so as far as the animals, he brought 2 of each of the clean and 7 of each of the unclean?
Actually, it was the other way around. He brought 2 of every unclean animal, a male and its mate, and 7 pairs of every clean animal. This distinction was important for sacrifices and for food. So there were more of the clean animals than the unclean ones on the ark.
And I mean, that's every type animal that was on the earth at the time?
Yes, the account says that representatives of every kind of animal, birds, livestock, and creatures that move along the ground, came to Noah to enter the ark. The goal was to preserve every species and ensure they could repopulate the earth after the flood. So every type of animal was represented.
You know, and I always used to think that that was kind of crazy, but if you really think about it, a lot of animals were crossbred, which created new animals, right?
Yes, that's a common understanding. Over time, the original kinds of animals on the ark could have diversified and adapted into the wide variety of species we see today. This concept aligns with how genetic variation and natural selection can lead to new breeds and species over many generations.
Does it say how the animals got on there? I mean, did they just come walking up?
Yes, it says that the animals came to Noah and entered the ark in pairs, as God had commanded. The implication is that they were divinely guided to the ark, so they came on their own and boarded in an orderly manner.
From all 7 continents?
The Bible doesn't specify the geographical origins of the animals, but it implies that all the kinds needed to repopulate the earth were present. Whether they came from all over the world or from a more localized area isn't detailed, but the focus is on preserving every kind of land animal and bird.
Okay, so the animals are on there, and who all was on the ark with Noah?
Noah was on the ark with his wife, his 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and their wives. So there were 8 people in total who boarded the ark along with all the animals.
And why did God have Noah build this?
God decided to bring a flood to cleanse the earth because it had become corrupt and filled with violence. Noah found favor in God's eyes because he was righteous and blameless among the people of his time. So God instructed Noah to build the ark to save himself, his family, and the animals, preserving life to start anew after the flood.
So is it implied, or are we to assume that they were the only 8 people left on earth after this flood?
Yes, according to the account, all other human beings perished in the flood. Noah and his family were the only humans who survived, making them the ancestors of all post-flood humanity.
So it's like Adam and Eve all over again.
In a way, yes. Noah and his family essentially became the new starting point for humanity, just as Adam and Eve were the first. They were given the task of repopulating the earth and continuing the human lineage after the flood.
And Noah lived to be how old?
Noah lived to be 950 years old. According to the Bible, he lived 350 years after the flood.
He sent was it a dove out that brought back a tree leaf or something like that?
Yes, that's right. After the floodwaters began to recede, Noah first sent out a raven and then a dove. The dove eventually returned with an olive leaf, indicating that the waters had receded enough for plants to grow again. Later, when the dove didn't return, it showed that the land was drying out and it was safe to leave the ark.
And it doesn't say like where the ark landed or anything like that?
It does say where it landed. The ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat, which is traditionally associated with a region in modern-day Turkey. The exact location isn't specified beyond that, but it's considered a mountainous area where the ark settled as the floodwaters receded.
And we haven't found Noah's Ark today?
There have been numerous expeditions and claims about finding the remains of Noah's Ark on Mount Ararat and other locations, but no definitive, scientifically verified discovery has been made. The search continues to be a topic of interest and debate, but as of now, no conclusive evidence has been found.
But we do have the technology to scan that area now?
Yes, modern technology like satellite imagery, ground-penetrating radar, and aerial surveys can scan and map areas in great detail. These tools have been used to investigate the region around Mount Ararat and other possible sites. While they've revealed interesting formations and structures, no definitive proof of the ark has been confirmed yet.
And gopher wood, would it still be intact today?
It's unlikely that gopher wood, or any ancient wood, would remain intact after thousands of years. Organic materials typically decompose over time, especially in harsh environmental conditions. However, some materials can be preserved if they are buried in ice, volcanic rock, or other protective environments, though it would be extremely rare.
So in that area, is there any volcanic or ice?
Yes, Mount Ararat is a volcanic mountain and is often snow-capped, especially at its higher elevations. This combination of volcanic rock and ice could potentially preserve materials under the right conditions. However, the environment is also harsh and dynamic, which complicates the preservation of ancient artifacts.
And from Noah to Christ, do we know how much time is between that?
The timeline from Noah to Christ isn't exact, but based on the genealogies and chronologies in the Bible, it's roughly a few thousand years. The genealogies in Genesis and other books of the Bible outline the generations from Noah through Abraham, then through King David, and ultimately to Jesus. The exact number of years can vary depending on interpretations and calculations.
So when you say a few thousand and can vary, are we talking 2,000, 3,000, 4,000? Roughly how much time?
Roughly, it's about 2,000 years from Noah to Abraham, and another 2,000 years from Abraham to Christ, making it approximately 4,000 years in total, give or take depending on the specific chronology used.
So that's about 6,000 years from us?
Approximately, yes. If you follow a traditional biblical chronology, that would place the events of Noah around 4,000 to 4,500 years ago, and from Christ to now is about 2,000 years, making a total of around 6,000 years.
And gopher wood, after 6,000 years, would it be gone, disintegrated?
After 6,000 years, gopher wood or any wood exposed to normal environmental conditions would almost certainly have decayed or disintegrated. Only in very unique and highly preservative conditions, like being encased in ice, volcanic ash, or extremely dry environments, would there be any chance of survival. Even then, the wood would likely be in a highly deteriorated state.
So does people take Noah's Ark literally?
Some people do take the story of Noah's Ark literally, viewing it as a historical event. Others see it as a symbolic or allegorical narrative meant to convey moral or theological lessons. Interpretations vary widely among different religious and scholarly communities, with some considering it a literal historical account and others viewing it as a meaningful story or parable.
Okay, Eve, well, thank you for this information on Noah and Noah's Ark.
You're welcome, Chris. If you have any more questions or want to chat about something else, just let me know.